broadcastily manner. Today we're going to talk about the third pillar of cliffs. And for those who don't know, there is an article on D&D Beyond that talks exactly about the third pillar. I'm so happy somebody wrote one. John Hake, the details will be in link will be listed below. So thank you very much. And for anybody who was on the old broadcast, I apologize. Yeah, Prue says, we're back. Fingers crossed. We're all right now. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. YouTube, the last time YouTube did it, I did a 40-minute broadcast and they crushed it down to 40 seconds, like 42 seconds or something. Yeah, I wish I could talk that fast. Maybe some people would say, yeah, DBJ, shut the hell up. Yeah, so, all right, anyway, we are back. We're going to talk about cliff sides. Cliffs are, I think, I find it actually kind of ironic that we don't, in role-playing games, we don't have more mechanical features related to cliffs and climbing, because it's such an iconic environment. Meaning, like you mentioned, weaponizing the side of a cliff. Like if you're at the bottom and someone just starts dropping heavy rocks off the side of it, I mean, there's not really many places you can go or things you can do to avoid being hit. Now, there is a caveat to that. Depending on the action movie you watch, there's quite a few acrobatic scenes. It was the first one that's coming to my mind is one from, I want to say it's G.I. Joe, although we've probably seen it before. And Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, where if you dangle from a rope from a very high location, you can move laterally by springing off of the whatever the sheer surface is and kind of spinning through the air to land again when your momentum brings you back to the building. Yeah, and Die Hard, the original.
Yeah, he does that there as well.
Yeah, he wrapped the fire hose around his waist and jumped off the top of the building and then slams into the side of the building, and then he's got to like push himself off and take a couple of gunshots to blast the glass so he can get through it. So yeah, Proust has plenty of cool movie scenes with the antagonist climbing cliffs and getting attacked. But more to the point, like there's a huge danger in climbing cliffs, right? There's just the additional danger of climbing a cliff is that the minute you start doing it, you're automatically at a disadvantage. I mean, that's where the threat comes in. Like you're automatically at a point where there's not many places for you to go. Your hands are tied. You can't really run anywhere. Climbing and ascending is very difficult. So you have the issue with that. There's this idea that when you're climbing and you have your allies with you, they have to either climb below you, so everyone's like attached to the same rope, or you have to use multiple ropes and you have to worry about maybe grabbing someone that may begin to fall. I mean, there's all those like little elements that I think are part and parcel of climbing. Even Prue says loose rocks when climbing, treacherous footholds, those are all things that I think are overlooked beyond the make a climbing check to get to the top, right? Having that conflict while you're trying to climb, I think makes for could make for like some tense action.
I mean, in the movies, that's what makes the suspense, and that when they're climbing and all the rocks they're grabbing onto are slipping away and that. And you were saying about everyone having to like climb the same rope. Doing that would get rid of the fact that they can use their agility to move from side to side because they've got the weight of everyone else on the rope as well. So it would make them much more of a target.
Yeah. I mean, pick any good or bad survivalist movie, like, you know, in the Arctic, climbing up mountainsides or what have you. I don't know. I want to say movies like Terminal Velocity or something, or Everest, or movies like that, man. There's always someone who slips and falls and gets yanked on the safety line off of someone else's waist or something. Someone always has to reach out and grab someone else by their forearm to keep them from falling down to the rocks below. Um, Tesla Ranger even says, remember the Eloy Cliffside Village in the Time Machine. This is like 2002. Yeah, I wouldn't say about 2002 or so. I mean, and I mean, just think of the simple. Here's one little simple complication I think that is overlooked, and that's using your hands. I brought it up before a while ago about just using your hands and being forced to like use one or both hands to grab onto something, especially in like Dungeons and Dragons or any role-playing game, doesn't really matter. As a narrative complication, it's kind of rough. I mean, what if you're trying to use a two-handed weapon on a cliffside, you're going to have to really explain how it is you're wielding a weapon and holding on. Now, granted, it's possible. You know, there's a rope around your waist, or you've let go of the rope and you're just standing on a narrow cliff, like a narrow ledge as you're scaling the cliff or something. But I can't imagine like swinging a two-handed sword, or I mean, sure, you could use like a glaive or a spear or something of that nature, but I cannot imagine it would be very easy, you know.
Cliffside combat's not something I've seen done very often. Like the player character ascending the cliff and the enemy descending the cliff to catch them, and
yeah, I mean, tons of disadvantage, both literally and figuratively, for the people climbing. You know, wow. Prue says, and we're back to clerics holding holy symbols between their butt cheeks. As a reminder, yeah. Squeezing those butt cheeks and holding that holy symbol. I'm sure there might be a religion or two out there that approves of such things, but I suppose the player character that feels that they can do that and explain that away in a gonzo adventure would be I would just have to nod and say, yes, absolutely, you can go ahead if you want to plan on cleaning it off later. But you know, you've got the person who's like, in one hand I've got my spell components, and in my other hand I've got my arcane focus, and in my third hand I have my you know, you're gonna have to make a big decision. You know, using a bow, that's nearly impossible if you want to continue ascending. Tesla Ranger, is the vampire repulsed by the holy symbol or something else? Yeah.
This conversation is going to get on to something else soon, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not garlic that repels the vampires. It's always been that, you know, that stale burrito you had the night before.
That's a bit of Dracula you never see.
Yeah, like, woo, that's nasty. So, you know, climbing the cliff too can imagine being attacked by like some kind of like flying beast or mounted enemies or something. I mean, just trying to find maybe trying to find a safe place to safe place to duck if the cliff has a ton of like crevices in it, places to hide. Maybe there are places to find cover, right? But if you find cover, you're not ascending. So yes, you're being protected, but no, you're not moving anywhere. And if it takes, I'm just making up something, like if it takes 5 rounds of continuous climbing to reach from the bottom to the top, you're putting that in the player's hands. Those choices, I think, is a great tool to use. Like, yeah, you can start ascending. You've got to go hand over hand. You're going to be at a severe disadvantage from dodging, and you're going to be at a severe disadvantage because you can really only use maybe a one-hand weapon. Well, how do you climb with one hand? I guess you couldn't climb with one hand. Now, see, I'm going. Players could help. Someone could get to the top and start pulling people up, which would be a great idea, or maybe some kind of pulley system. Someone latches a rope at the top, and then you can kind of use like a pulley system where you pull the rope down and it pulls you or your equipment up.
I'm sure there are one-handed climbers, so I'm sure there's ways to do it. I think they'd have it tightly wrapped around their waist, and like it's kind of they let go and grab on really quickly, and
yeah,
themselves up that way.
Yeah. Prue apologizes for diverting. Oh, I love diverting off the subject. It's quite all right. We are all in this together. So yeah, climbing. I mean, like you said, I'm sure there are plenty of rock climbers, free climbers that are probably experts at it, using one hand and such. But then now, if you bring up like the free climbers versus the rope climbers, or I guess rappellers, I don't know any terminology for using ropes and climbing, mountaineering or something, but you could have this not strange, but mixed encounter where maybe the rogue-ish roof running, mountain climbing individuals have a lot more freedom to move if they don't have a tensioner rope, while the other player characters that are less inclined must use a rope. So you could have some that are far more equipped to move around or hide or like spring from like one crevice to another. Creating some hazards where, not hazards, but the opportunity to say, hey, if you leap this 15-foot gap, it'll put you in a better position, but if you miss, you could fall to your doom. Something like that.
I mean, the better players could climb the cliff and attach the rope to pull the other players up.
Yeah. Heck, even Prue says if the enemies are climbing too, most of them will have the same difficulties with weapons, though, and especially if it's not their home terrain. And see, that's a great way of complicating the situation, and turning an enemy, like a normally mediocre enemy, could have a huge advantage if they are at the top and you're at the bottom. Those nasty kobolds would absolutely positively want to, start dumping rocks or hot oil or nets or beehives on top of your head and dropping them down on you. I would not want to get hit with a angry beehive in the head.
And that's where the acrobatics comes in of the climbers.
Yeah,
being able to dodge out the way and.
Yep. Falling is the same thing, where proves the same thing with falling. Even if you have enemies that are climbing down to attack you, the orc chieftain is forcing his most loyal / scared hirelings or part of his group, and orders them to go down the cliffside to attack you. In many ways, they are in the same position, right? Maybe they're climbing down and they're like throwing javelins at you from above, but the acrobatic dwarf who's a mountain climber could like start like trying to sever the ropes or something, or someone a mage could set fire to a rope so that the fire climbs up the rope to the enemy, which would be funny. You know, it would be it could be the comical. The rope burns away, but the individual still standing there, stuck in midair for a heartbeat before they realize that the rope is gone, and then they fall to their doom.
Also, with the enemies climbing down, if other enemies are still chucking objects down, then those enemies that are climbing down could possibly get in the way of that.
Yeah, there's no loyalty amongst goblinoids, so yeah, I'm pretty sure an orc or two would throw a rock and hit his buddy in the head for, you know, stealing his gambling winnings or something from last night. You know, so what, he falls to his doom. At least I got those pesky adventurers. Yeah. I wonder what combat would be like when they start to grapple each other. Like the adventurers are climbing up, the enemy climbs down, you meet in the middle. Oh, Vincent Shine says, "Hey guys, what's going on?" Yeah. And so let's say there's like a little grappling situation, right? I mean, sure, you could try to stab each other or kick each other, but, you know, wouldn't it be far more effective just to cut the other guy's rope or slash the other guy's hand as they're trying to hold on, and, you know, both of you are attacking each other with short swords or something? I mean, it wouldn't matter how many hit points you have, cut the rope and they're gone. You know, even if they survive the fall, it might take them 4 rounds to climb up, ascend up the rope to catch you, and by that time you can now you have the opportunity to drop something on their head.
Also, you got, with the momentum of the sword swings or the punches or the grabs, you got the momentum of that would cause the ropes to start swinging, and you might lose your grip that way.
Ooh, wait. So yeah, so you could impart momentum to someone, and like, you know, if you struck someone with, you know, really hard, kick them or hit them with a hammer, they could go swinging, and like you said, they could lose their grip, and that swing maybe puts them further away from you or maybe closer to someone else. What's the Game of Thrones? They did this. I don't know what season. They scaled the wall, the Great Wall, and the wildlings were climbing. They estimated it like 700 feet or something like that, and they were climbing up. And then the watchers on the wall defended themselves by using a ship's anchor, and the ship's anchor was attached at the top, and they used it as a pendulum to scrape against the wall by dropping the anchor at, basically taking the chain, stretching it out at its farthest range, dropping it from the top, and letting it swing back and forth to take out the enemy. That was, I mean, I suppose you could defend yourself by jumping out away from the wall to escape it, but that's not. There's not much more you could do than that.
That could also translate to a player character doing that sort of thing, acting like a pendulum to get the momentum as the sword swing.
Yeah.
With the rope, holding on with one hand and kind of like wall running with the rope.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that, you know, rule of cool, right? Hey, make an athletics check and run across the wall. Yeah, I think that would be great. And then like Vincent says, you know, a spell could change the direction of gravity, so the wall could be considered down. What terrible movie was it? Mila Jovovich, she had a gravity belt on. She was driving a motorcycle across city buildings. I cannot remember the name of
Ultraviolet.
Was it Ultraviolet? Yeah, wherever her feet, whatever her orientation was, that was gravity for her. And you could get really bizarre with that too, especially if the spell has a duration and that duration starts to go out.
What we made you just walking up the cliff.
Yeah.
Ended up having to run up the cliff because they've realised that it's about to run out.
Yeah. Yep. And Prue brings up the point, like, yes, but who would cast it? Spellcasters would be busy holding on the rope. So, unless they're purely verbal spells. And see, okay, yeah, maybe I'm the a-hole for bringing this up for all you spellcasters out there and player characters, but I like the idea of challenging like verbal components and somatic components in 5th edition, so that you have to be more creative with what you're doing. So maybe those verbal spells become far more important to use than the ones that are strictly somatic, right? So maybe, like, for example, I don't know whether this is true, but maybe that charm spell you were saving, which is only verbal, might be useful because then you could try to charm an enemy and get them to, let go of the rope or something, or get them to, hit someone else to get their ally to let go of the rope. Whereas maybe that lightning bolt spell is not possible because you've got to hold on with 2 hands, and the wizard trying to hold on with 1 hand and use spell components and use a free hand might not be possible. I think climbing a cliff can get pretty complicated, far more than, or more complicated if you want, far more than just make an athletics check to get to the top.
I think with being a spellcaster, you'd have to like sort of work quite closely with the GM, get the GM on side to let you do these things.
Yeah. Like Vincent Shine makes the point of you could bind the rope around your torso temporarily so you have your hand free. And see, that's the question, right? What if you've got enemies at the top and you're the spellcaster and you've got 3 rounds, 5 rounds to get to the top? Do you take the time to not move to cast a spell? Like, that's where you're flipping in your mind the advantage, the cost effect analysis of, do I scramble to the top or do I pause long enough to cast a spell to help out my allies, or do my allies help me? Does the barbarian grab the scruff of the neck of the spellcaster long enough for the spellcaster to cast a spell, but now the barbarian can't attack anybody, even though maybe the barbarian's the best at doing the climbing, and I love that conundrum. I love that kind of thing. Like, sure, every situation could be different,
Be a lot of discussion and arguing around the table. Someone trying to get their character to help out my character, but their character won't be able to do anything.
Right. Yeah. Vincent says, what if you use the guy with the changed gravity as an anchor for the ropes for the other guys? I mean, yeah, sure. Unless the person with the changed gravity who's standing now, their gravity is perpendicular to the cliff, but I wouldn't say that would make them stronger. They'd still have to hold on to 2 or 3 allies. They'd still have, they would. I mean, then you get in the complication of, do you put do you anchor the rope where you're at? Meaning like you can't ascend, but the rope has a strong anchor, so there's no chance of it being like cut from the top or something. It's wow. Yeah, I mean, you can. This can get really complicated pretty quickly. Heck, don't drop anything. You're not getting it back.
Go back to like, if there is like sort of crevices or even little caverns inside of the cliff as they're going up, that would also make climbing up a lot more difficult because they'd have to overcome like the crevice, or if there's a lip at the top.
Yeah, they still have to get over that lip. And I mean, and Prue brings up a golden rule, right? We'll let the players figure it out. We'll just come up with the challenges. Absolutely. And you could even, like we were talking about, finding a crevice. I mean, besides just trying to scale the top and worry about enemies, as a game master, you can throw in ledges that someone can land on temporarily. um uh what else? You can throw in little hidden crevices where someone can get cover, like half cover or three-quarters cover. Of course, with the limitation that they're not moving up or down. You could have loose rocks along the way, where there's a chance that someone can dislodge a rock and have it fall down on an enemy, or fall down on one of their allies. There's always a chance of that. Maybe grab a die and say, "Hey, everybody, roll a d6," and if you roll a 1, you've just knocked some rocks loose. The classic. The rope is starting to abrade, so you're climbing up, and little by little, by moving side to side, the rope starts to cut and starts to abrade just a little bit more and just a little bit more, um, which creates its own tension. So yeah, I can imagine, hey, as you guys are fighting, and maybe like roll a die, and like you roll 5 or something, or 4, you're like, okay, so you realize the rope is starting to, because it's rubbing against the sharp rock, that if you continue this fighting, hanging on this rope for 4 rounds, it's going to pop on the 5th one. And then you just throw that timer out there. It can seem kind of metagamey, but why not? Tell them you've got 4 rounds. That's it. After that, wizard, you're going to fall to your death if you keep, as the rope pops, because it's just getting cut. Rats are climbers. Yeah, rats. Familiars. If someone's got a familiar, they could peck. A bird could peck away at the rope or something. A rat could chew away at it. Spiders and crabs can climb up a rope that maybe a wizard could not. Of course, setting fire to it. Cold spells. Why not? Let it freeze and shatter.
You're just thinking of more ways to kill the PCs now.
So, hey, what's good for the goose, man? What's good? Well, okay, all right. So, let's think of some PC advantages. Let's see. Someone could yank on the rope of an enemy if they're coming down on them, so that, like, the CrossFit thing, where you grab the rope and you flick the rope up and down to create a wave in it. What is a good term for that? I don't know. Someone very strong could flick a rope and then fling the enemy that's trying to hang on the rope. The barbarian with his like 22 strength just grabs it with one hand and flicks it, like knocks like 5 enemies off of it to their doom. Yeah.
I don't. Even more, they just pull the rope off completely from where it's attached.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like whipping that rope, or Tesla Ranger, I cast standing wave. I mean, the spell rope trick. That'd be very useful. You'd have to, I don't know, you could throw the rope out into the middle of the unknown and jump out and grab your own rope trick and climb up.
Sure. Yeah. I suppose that's another one that's, well, it would be quite cool actually, doing that.
Yep. I cannot believe I missed this one. Vincent Shine says, someone with super high dex could try to grapple enemies with his own rope by whipping them around their neck. What? That is, that's exactly. I mean, how many times have we seen that, where the the hero is fighting the bad guy. The bad guy's got him on the ropes. They're punching and knocking and kicking each other. The good guy's down, and the good guy then whips around, takes the chain or the rope or whatever, wraps it around the bad guy's neck, and like kicks them out into the unknown. And they just like fall and break their neck, or like get choked, or they're hanging by their ankle. You know, I mean, yeah, why the hell not, right? And you know, you could
depends how violent you want to get with it, with how they end up hanging, whether by the neck or by the foot.
Yeah, and what a great target after that, right? You know, the enemy gets you wrap the enemy around the foot, kick him off the rope, he starts dangling upside down with one foot hanging, and then somebody else is like, oh, great target, shoot him with a bow, hit him with a dagger, smash him with a rock, you know, little improvised weapon. Yeah, why the hell not? I mean, there's so many things you could do with that. A bow or a slingshot. I think that's I don't know. I think that's pushing it a little bit. Use the rope as a bow, like a bowstring or a slingshot. Although, you know what, you could use it as a whip. I mean, if there's no one below you, you could take the dangling portion of your rope and just use it to whip out and try to snatch someone else. Like a towel, like using it like a wet towel. You just like spin it around and like, you know, whip them in the ass and hope that they it stings them enough that they let go with one hand and grab their rear end after you give them a little bit of a red whelp on their exposed buttocks.
And a comic moment would be if you do entangle an enemy by its ankle or something, you could then use them as the pendulum. Once you got to the top, you could start swinging them around.
Oh man, we're getting ridiculous with this, but it's cool though. It's just, I mean, it's just so many silly things you could think of, you know, where not silly, but like, if you let your imagination go, and especially if the players are really into it, you know, and they really aren't into, hey, what's on their character sheet, you know, you can really let some things, you know, go wild with it. Oh, okay, we're getting to halfling throwing now. That's not. That's kind of cool. Actually, that's kind of. I mean, you know, if the halfling's down for it, wrap them around the waist and swing them around a couple of times and throw them. You know, hey, we're going to throw them 30 feet over across the crevice, and then and then you could travel laterally, right? So someone gets the halfling going in a big pendulum, gets him going at the apex. The halfling goes flying 30 feet, grabs onto, say, another ledge, and so now the rope is horizontal. So they could make like a horizontal rope and maybe use that as a expanse to go from one area to another.
You get themselves away from the throwing enemies.
Yeah.
Or out of the range of the pendulum.
Wow. You know, and even if you have enemies that at one point have advantages over the PCs, it's a possibility that the players could quickly turn it to their advantage. So I don't know, like goblins on pterodactyls or something are like attacking the PCs. So they're the PCs are climbing up the ropes. The flying enemies are flying around them. They're throwing javelins. One of the PCs decides to leap out into the unknown and grapple a goblin on the back of the pterodactyl, kicks the goblin off, and now they've got this, you know, pterodactyl they're riding on that, you know, they could temporarily guide it or something like that, and then use that against the other enemies or something. I mean, I don't know. That just sounds cool to me. That, like if a PC came up with that idea, like I would absolutely go with it. I wouldn't start page flipping and figure out ways to stop them from doing it, I would just be like, that's cool. Let's make a roll for that.
And also, as well as like the orcs or the goblins at the top of the cliff coming down to get your PCs, you got the creatures that would naturally live in the cliff.
Yeah.
As well. It would be there. Your giant spiders and
spiders, webs. Vincent points out a perfect thing. I can't believe I didn't think of this one either. Using spells that normally only go on the ground would also be useful. Something that summons roots to grapple enemies would be a great fail-safe or improvised anchor, or grease to slip enemies. Hell yeah, grease spell. Oh shit. I can't, that would just oh man.
You could cast it on the side of the cliff or on the rope. Either way.
Yeah. Cliff or the rope. A web or entangle spell might actually be helpful for you. So the druid could say cast an entangle spell that the paladin or the barbarian wants to be grappled. So they get their legs and their body grappled against the cliff so they can swing their weapon. It would be a I don't want to resist the grapple so that I am held tight kind of thing.
Or if the rope's about to fray, they could entangle the part of the rope that's fraying and it would hold it.
Yeah, so if the rope frays, the grapple could, or a web spell, or mage hand isn't strong enough, but something of that nature could grab that rope that gets ready to slip from the top edge, or an enemy starts like cutting away at it with a dagger, and then the grappled roots grab that top of the rope, in its form. A Tensor's floating disc spell would be awesome. Someone could stand on the floating disc if the wizard could get the spell off. Wow. There was something else I was thinking. A mage hand or unseen servant could tie a knot in a rope that frays, so it could tie to, say, roots that are poking, or like a rocks that are poking out, so that the frayed rope could have another anchor. Mending spell, yeah, grease spell, mending spell. Buff the rope so it becomes harder to cut. Wow. Now you know what? Now there would be a strange adjudication, right? I cast mage armor on the rope itself. That would be different, or some kind of resistance or something to the rope, like some way of encasing the rope in some kind of protective spell that normally only targets, say, a person or something.
I'd let them, because it doesn't make it any more difficult for you as a GM. Give you any more problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Hell yeah. I mean, what's the spell? Sanctuary. The cleric sanctuary has people basically like avoid you. So you could cast that on your rope to have the enemies decide not to cut your rope, but someone else's.
Mm.
I mean, if they're going to target you, you cast sanctuary on yourself or an ally. You see the enemy with their dagger going for an ally's rope. You cast sanctuary on them. The enemy thinks twice about it and decides to go for a different target. I mean, oh my God, there's wow, electricity. Blinding someone. If you blind someone and they're climbing a cliff, they really don't have too many options as far as like as targeting someone else, especially if it's very dynamic. And even falling. I mean, let's just even take the idea of falling down, right? Of course, the go-to is if you fail, you fall to your doom. But who's to say you don't fall 20 feet and then you get pulled on an arrestor rope, or you fall 15 feet and you can grab onto a ledge, or the cliff face isn't sheer. It's got plenty of abutments, so you could fall, hit an abutment, and then fall again, and hit another one. Maybe if someone falls, you roll a die, like a die 4, and that's how many tens of feet you fall before hitting something and having the opportunity to grab on with like your fingertips, or you fall on your back because there's just enough of a ledge for you to land on it and start all over again.
Definitely, I think it'd make much more enjoyable for the players if it falling doesn't equal death.
Right.
If there's something they can do to avoid it.
Right. And even then, like, let's talk about this on a metagaming kind of thing. I hear in a lot of forums that if there's no risk of death, that the game isn't that there's no tension, right? And I would disagree, that because first of all, you've got your players, and you really want your players in your game. I mean, if everyone dies falling off a cliff, then the game's over. But on the other hand, you want to give them every opportunity to pull their fat out of the fryer, to have some fun as well. So, I don't think falling to your doom should be the only outcome. I like the idea of like falling and having a restor rope, or like falling and hitting a ledge on the cliffside so you can pull yourself up and start all over again. Or, if the cliff is 300 feet and there's places to stand about every 30 feet, why not use that? I mean, it makes sense narratively, and it also gives you as a GM a way of air quotes saving your players. Mind you, bad die rolls always, mean everything. But like Tesla Ranger says, maybe not as bad as death, but definitely some kind of failure. And you can still. I always think that there's things worse than death, right? If the paladin falls 20 feet but drops his Holy Avenger, what hurts more, right? The paladin's like, I'm going to jump after it. I don't want to lose my sword. Ah! I mean, if the barbarians, flaming vorpal battle axe, if the barbarian falls 30 feet and the battle axe falls another 30 feet down, do you climb down 30 more feet to pick up your weapon to climb back up, or do you just scale back up the wall to attack enemies? These are things that you can use to complicate the situation. Yes, Vincent Shine, thank you very much. If they fall down, maybe they break their legs. Getting them healed is super hard. Yeah, especially if the cleric's holding on with that. Well, they've got the holy symbol in their butt cheeks, so I'm pretty sure if they can juggle a healing spell out of their rear end. I think if the cleric has to heal a person that broke their leg. But I mean, if you break a leg or dislocate a shoulder, someone falls and they snatch on and they dislocate a shoulder because they're not a yeah. Hey, I love that cleric. That cleric is just awesome. Healing word. So anyway. Yeah, no jaguars in this one. And,
Don't need them.
We're going with the cleric. So there's this the idea that sorry guys.
Bear in mind, jaguars are good at climbing.
Yeah, they are, but I know one whiff of the cleric using a healing word, and that's enough. Oh my god. Oh shit. Anyway, so complications, dropping stuff, dislocated arms, broken legs, concussions, broken back, wow, falling and then getting your arm or leg wrapped in the rope, so now like your arm is trapped in it, so you can't release it, or you're hanging upside down because your leg is trapped in the rope. Vincent says breaking body parts shouldn't be able to be healed just by a simple healing spell. You know, you could set some kind of a standard in your game, like it takes, I don't know, 5 hit points or 10 hit points of healing worth of healing to heal a broken bone. You know, I don't know, you break a rib and it pokes your lung, so you get like a level of exhaustion, and if you know, until it heals, you know, you can't breathe very well, and you know, you're trying to climb up but it hurts or something like that. I mean, you could come up with so many of these things, which um self-promotion, most of this stuff is actually in one of the books we wrote called Mountains, but because, you know, we're talking about sheer cliffs. If you go off of a sheer cliff and make it an angled cliff, either for or against you. So an angled cliff meaning like a wall that you're climbing, but it's angled so you could slide down it like a ramp, or it could be an overhang. So in order to climb the overhang, there's a period where you have to hang out exposed over the I'm trying to describe it without using a visual method. An overhang, you could use that as cover from an enemy, or someone who's brave enough could free climb out underneath the overhang to maybe get to a better vantage point. A paladin mounts better be a spider or a crab or something, because they're not going up there. Well, unless someone's like, I'm pulling my horse up, I don't care what you guys do. Hey, the player character the player character centaur is just not making it. They are just they are just like, hey guys, please don't make fun of me.
Could you imagine it? Everyone's made it up the cliff, but the paladin's still at the bottom saying, "I'm not leaving the horse."
Yeah. Well, now of course, you know, Vincent makes the point of a horse could be used as an anchor. Well, if the horse is at the top and you're scaling down, because we've pretty much been talking about scaling up, but if the horse is at the top, they can absolutely be an anchor to scale down, which makes its own problems. Right? If you're Boromir in the first Lord of the Rings and you're at the top and you're holding the rope for your 3 other allies that are going down, and you're taking arrows in the chest as you're trying to hold onto the rope, that becomes a tension situation amongst anything. Yeah, Aarakocra is like, seriously, you guys are the worst. You know, oh my God, like the Aarakocra is like, look, I'm at the top. Could you guys hurry it up? Although here again, people who complain about the Aarakocra having the ability to fly, and I think they put out a Unearthed Arcana about flying elves, which basically they give up most of their bonuses to get wings. That means that the flying PC has the most freedom, but they're also the best target. If I'm defending the top of the cliff and I see somebody with wings and 3 people on a rope, I'm hitting the guy with the wings first. Right? It only makes sense to get rid of the most mobile free individual, because they're just going to start dropping bombs on me, right? If you're a spell casting flying individual, you're going to start, you know, throwing out the burning hands and lightning bolts at the people at the top of the cliff. So they're going to surround, maybe one person's trying to cut the ropes and maybe they've got 3 of their allies with like short bows or something. You know, you could have that kind of situation.
Definitely,
So
it's just like the enemies on the pterodactyls. They're the easiest target, yet they're the most threatening with what they can do.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first thing you're going to go after. Although people flying, one of their disadvantages is not being able to carry heavy weights. So someone could throw like a weighted net over top of them, or entangle them in a rope that pulls them against the cliffside, eliminating their advantage in flying. So someone on the cliff could toss some sort of entangling mechanism or like a whip to grab them, to pull their winged advantage and slam them against the wall. Wow, you could shoot, in our planes book we put in meteor hammers. Basically it's a rope with a rock at the end. So you could take a long rope with a rock at the end, swing it around, entangle like the feet of a giant eagle, and to keep it from flying away. And then either you could hang on to the rope and have them fly away with you, and you could just fly, get pulled through the air. Or if the rope is attached to the cliff, the eagle can't go anywhere, so it gets pulled against the wall, unless the eagle's strong enough, like a giant rock, in which case maybe it flies up in the air. So now all the people attached to the rope are like strung out over the strung out in the open, so they're like a clothesline, you know. I don't
Also, if it's attached to the cliff and the rock pulls at it and it's strong enough to pull the anchor, it also cause a landslide with the cliff. It'll destabilize the cliff edge.
Yep. You know, now Vincent kind of makes a point, because we were talking about different animals. He says you can't make a general rule for such wide range of animals. But here I think is how there's an easy way to adjudicate it by just using the rules that are already there, right? Strength, dex, saves. Is it a large creature, small creature, you know, gargantuan creature? I think you could use those things as a baseline. So for example, there's the wife. Hold on for 2 seconds. So using it as a baseline, for example, you could say a creature larger than you isn't vulnerable to being pulled down, right? Or you could say anything of a size rank larger than you or above gets advantage to resist being pulled or grappled. So a giant eagle might be a large animal, whereas like a rock, an ROC, might be like gargantuan. I'm pulling this off the top of my head. Or what's the race? Player character race. Goliath. Maybe the Goliath's the Goliath has an ability that says that it can carry things as if it's one size level larger. So maybe that ability becomes super important in a situation, right? And so the rest of the party members become encumbrance that the Goliath can hold more than someone else. So you could make the case that the Goliath, or like the centaur, you know, which can carry a lot of weight, you're like, okay, you know what? Because you can carry more weight, you can carry, I don't know, 4. You can easily carry 2 allies. 4 of them, you can't really pull them up, but you can hold on to them very easily, right? You can make some kind of ruling like that. I could see that. Same thing with like a giant spider or a crab or gorilla, you know, something that has brachiation, that, you know, can climb hand over using their hand and feet, might have a huge advantage if you're in the jungle. You're climbing up a cliffside in the jungle, and giant baboons or gorillas or something start scampering up. Maybe jungle yetis, like yetis that you've just reskinned as jungle creatures. That, you know, instead of blending into the Arctic, they can blend into the jungle. So maybe they have a huge advantage climbing things. So I would, if it were up to me, because we've been talking about a ton of crap. Where do we go with it? I would just say default to the rules: dex saves, athletics checks, strength contests, skill contests. You know, strength versus strength, dex versus dex. I would even give the option of, if it makes sense, use it. So the orc uses strength, but your character's quick. I'll let you use dex. Both of you make a roll. High roll wins.
Yeah.
Yeah. Strength for roll a d20, add your mod, and highest roll. Hey, they try to pull you off your rope, and instead they pull themselves away, kind of thing. God, there's so many complications that can arise from this that I think make for great role-playing opportunities, narrative opportunities. Oh, Vincent Shine, he says, by the way, who's your guest? We've hit the hour mark, so let's do the self-promotion part. So RP, who are you?
I'm a RP gamer. I'm a lone little Englishman who does basically what DBJ does and talks randomness for about 15, 20 minutes while I show off where I live, basically. And yeah, I'm getting back into running games soon, so they'll be up there. But definitely come subscribe and check my videos out and all that stuff. Like and share and all that, what they say.
Yeah. Yeah, our RP's being a little modest. Yeah, subscribe to his channel. He goes on his what he considers to be ramblings, but gets to show you where he lives near a bird sanctuary, so you get a really great view of the natural environment and such. So yeah, subscribe to him as well. My intention is to have plenty of guests, but in order to be a guest, you kind of have to invite yourself on, because I may not know who you are. So if you are a person who is a content creator, reach out to me in some sort of way. Probably the answer will be yes, unless you're a big a-hole, in which case the answer is probably going to just be a big maybe. But anyway, of course, I'm RPG with DBJ. I've kind of changed the name of the channel a little bit, so don't get thrown off by that. And of course, I'm always I'm the contributing writer to Critical Hit Publishing. The D6th and the D20th, we release a new adventure key, which the adventure key, unlock your imagination, man. Yeah. Oh, Vincent, dude. And I'm out. Yeah, see you later. You don't have to sit around for it. I don't expect anyone to sit around for the commercial, but self-promotion, got to do it. Like, share, subscribe. What is it? Sub, thumb, share, and bell. How's that? What the hell ever, man. Anyway, I think we've gone on long enough for this. It's been over an hour, dude. So, and I've got to get ready for work. So
yeah,
anyway,
things to do.
So anyway, and for everybody, Vince and Prue and Tesla and everyone that's joined in, thank you very much. Thank you for joining this Third Pillar Thursday about Cliffsides. You guys have a good one.